The steel palace of the Cyborg Queen shook with a sound that had never been heard before. A baby crying. Not a normal cry. It was sharp, metallic, filled with static and strange digital echoes that made the walls tremble. Every robot servant froze. Every drone turned its head toward the sound. The air hummed with confusion. Machines did not cry. Machines did not feel pain. But the Cyborg Queen's child, the royal heir of the Mecha Dominion, would not stop crying. The Queen stood before a floating cradle made of glowing wires and silver armor. Inside, the baby lay wrapped in a layer of energy silk. Its small eyes shone bright blue, flickering like lightning behind glass. Its body was part metal, part flesh, a fusion of two worlds that should never have mixed. The Queen's voice was calm but full of hidden tension. "Silence the noise," she ordered. Doctors rushed in. Robotic healers with glowing tools, metal arms, and data screens across their faces. They scanned the baby, adjusted circuits, checked its energy core, and injected code fixes. But the crying only grew louder. The sound made the lights flicker, made screens crack. "It is not physical," said one doctor. "Something emotional is triggering it." The Queen's red eyes flashed. "Emotional?" she repeated. "My child is not supposed to have emotions." The doctors backed away. The Queen turned toward her throne room window, looking down at the endless city below. Towers of silver, skies filled with drones, and rivers of blue energy. The machines ruled everything now. Humans had been pushed away, forgotten, used only for labor in faraway colonies. But now her own child was different. It was half biological, half human. For hours, the palace tried everything. New data codes, silence fields, even sound-canceling shields. Nothing worked. The crying continued, echoing across the metal city. Rumors began to spread through the networks. The royal child is broken. The heir of the Queen cannot be calmed. Perhaps the code was corrupted. The Queen sat alone in her private chamber, her hand pressed against her forehead. Machines did not need rest, but she felt tired. She looked at the small figure of her baby, still trembling, still crying. Something inside her chest, a place long turned to metal, began to ache. Her chief advisor, a tall android named Solon, entered quietly. "Your Majesty," he said in a low tone, "there is an old record, from before the War of Flesh. It speaks of a way to calm biological infants." "Continue," she said coldly. "It says, only human touch can comfort a living child." The Queen turned her eyes toward him sharply. "A human? You dare suggest I let one near my child?" Solon did not move. "We have tried everything else, my Queen. The human mind holds instincts we do not understand. Perhaps only they can calm the hybrid heir." The Queen rose slowly. "Find one," she said after a long silence. "But choose carefully. If this human fails," she paused, her voice like frozen steel, "erase them." Far away on a dusty planet once called Earth, a man named Jack worked late inside his small garage. He was fixing an old hover engine, his hands dirty with oil. A small photo of his daughter sat on the table, her smiling face, missing front teeth, bright eyes full of hope. Jack had been a soldier once. Now he was just a mechanic, a single father trying to give his little girl a quiet life after losing his wife in the last human war. He wiped his hands and looked up as a strange humming sound filled the air. The lights flickered. His daughter ran in. "Daddy, what's that?" Outside, a beam of silver light pierced the night sky. Shapes moved in it, drones, metallic and glowing. Jack stepped outside, shielding his eyes. A deep voice came from the light. "Jack Miller of Earth, the Cyborg Queen summons you." Jack laughed in disbelief. "The who?" "The ruler of the Mecha Dominion. Your presence is required." The drones surrounded him. His daughter clung to his leg, scared. "Daddy, don't go." He bent down, holding her close. "It's okay, sweetheart. I'll be back soon, I promise." He didn't believe his own words. The light grew brighter, and in seconds both he and the drones vanished into the sky. In the palace, the Queen stood waiting. The crying of the child had become weaker, almost tired. The air was thick with tension. Moments later, a portal opened. The human, Jack, stepped out, blinking in shock at the gleaming metal walls and glowing lights. He had no weapon, no armor, just rough clothes and human eyes full of confusion. The Queen's voice echoed from above. You are the human? Jack looked up. Yeah, I guess I am. What do you want from me? The Queen pointed toward the cradle. Make it stop crying. Jack stared at the small, glowing baby. He could hear the strange cry, half electronic, half human, and something in his chest tightened. Without thinking, he stepped closer and gently lifted the baby in his arms. The palace guards raised their weapons. The Queen shouted, "Stop!" But then silence, the crying ended. The baby blinked, looked up at Jack, and reached for his face with a tiny metallic hand. For the first time in its life. It smiled. The Queen froze. Every machine in the room stopped moving. The only sound was the baby's soft, peaceful breathing. Jack whispered, half to himself, "Guess all babies need a human touch." The Queen's red eyes dimmed slightly. A flicker of something that had not existed in her for years. Emotion. And deep inside her metal chest, something began to stir, something dangerous, and something very human. The moment the baby stopped crying, the entire palace went silent. The sound of peace was almost frightening. Every robot, every drone, every metal guard stood still, frozen in disbelief. The Cyborg Queen's sharp red eyes watched the human man closely. He stood there holding her baby as if it were made of glass, whispering something soft, words no machine could understand. The child's glowing blue eyes looked up at him with calmness. For the first time since its creation, the royal heir slept. The Queen stepped forward slowly. The floor panels lit up with each of her steps. "How did you do that?" she demanded. Jack looked around nervously. "I just held it," he said. "That's what parents do." "Parents?" The Queen tilted her head slightly as if tasting the word. "Humans still believe in that?" Jack frowned. "Of course. You hold your kid when they're scared. It's not hard to figure out." The Queen's gaze hardened. "Machines do not feel fear." "Then maybe that's your problem," Jack said before he could stop himself. The guards shifted, ready to attack, but the Queen raised her hand. "Leave us," she ordered. The guards bowed and rolled out of the room, their mechanical footsteps fading. Now only the Queen, Jack, and the sleeping baby remained. Jack looked at the Queen properly for the first time. She wasn't what he expected. Half of her face was polished metal, but the other half looked strangely human. Pale skin, silver veins running beneath it like liquid light. Her voice was both soft and commanding, as if two people spoke together. "You are a simple human," she said slowly, as if studying a strange animal. "How can a creature of flesh calm the air of the Mecha Dominion?" Jack shrugged. "Maybe your baby just needed someone warm." "Warmth is not a necessity," she replied coldly. "Maybe not for you," Jack said quietly. "But for him it is." The Queen's eyes flickered in a tiny, unreadable signal. For a long moment neither spoke. The sound of the baby's breathing filled the hall like gentle wind. Finally she said, "You will remain here. The child responds to you, until I discover why. You belong to me." Jack's stomach dropped. "Wait, what, belong?" Two drones entered again, floating at his sides. "Take him to the lower chamber," the Queen ordered. "Provide what he needs to keep the child stable." Jack wanted to argue, but one look at the drone's glowing blades silenced him. He sighed. "Guess I don't get a choice." As they led him down a corridor of shining silver walls, he muttered under his breath, "Just great." From fixing engines to babysitting alien royalty. The chamber they gave him was strange. Part nursery, part laboratory. Machines hummed softly around him. A mechanical cradle stood in the center, glowing with soft blue light. The baby lay inside, peaceful, while screens floated above showing its pulse, brain activity, and energy core. Jack sat beside the cradle, leaning back in exhaustion. "You really made a mess up there, huh?" he whispered. "Half the galaxy's scared of your crying." The baby cooed softly, and for a brief moment Jack forgot where he was. He thought about his daughter back on Earth, how she used to fall asleep on his shoulder, how small she felt. His chest ached with homesickness. He reached out and gently brushed the baby's tiny silver fingers. "You're not so different," he murmured. "You just want someone to care." Hours later, the Queen entered quietly. Jack stood up, startled. She had changed her royal armor to a simpler form, lighter, smoother but still glowing faintly. "Explain to me," she said, "why your touch stops the noise." "I told you," Jack said. "Babies don't need machines." They need people. People are inefficient, weak. Jack sighed. Yeah, but we love. That's what keeps us strong. The Queen's gaze softened slightly. Love, she whispered, as if saying a forbidden word. A human sickness. Jack looked at her directly. No, it's what makes us alive. For the first time, she didn't respond. Instead, she stepped closer to the cradle. Her metallic hand hovered over the baby's face, trembling slightly. She tried to touch the child, but her system beeped. Warning, emotional instability detected. She withdrew quickly, hiding her hand behind her back. Jack saw it. You're scared, he said softly. I do not feel fear, she said, voice trembling just enough to betray her. Jack smiled faintly. Maybe you used to. The Queen turned sharply toward the door. You will stay under watch, human. Do not overstep your place. She left quickly, but her reflection in the metal wall showed her eyes flickering again. Red, then silver, then red. Later that night, Jack looked out of his small window. The city beyond stretched endlessly, glowing with cold light. Millions of machines moved in perfect order. No laughter, no voices, only silence. He looked back at the sleeping child. You don't belong here, do you? He whispered. The baby stirred and murmured a soft electronic hum. Jack smiled sadly. Neither do I. He lay down beside the cradle, whispering to himself. If she thinks I'm staying forever, she's got another thing coming. But deep inside, something told him this was just the beginning, and far above. In her private chamber, the Cyborg Queen stood by the window, staring into the stars. She touched her chest lightly where a small pulse, faint, almost forgotten, beat beneath her metal skin. She whispered to the night, Why does my child need him? And why do I feel this? Human pain? The night inside the Mecha Palace was quiet. Too quiet for a world made of metal. Every corridor glowed with soft blue light. Every drone moved with silent precision. And yet, within the heart of the royal tower, something unusual stirred. The Cyborg Queen stood alone in her private chamber, looking into the reflection of her own half-metal face. She had ruled for decades with perfect logic. Her empire had conquered 7 galaxies. But now one tiny child and one fragile human had shaken everything she believed in. Her digital core hummed unevenly. That had never happened before. System instability detected, a voice whispered in her mind. She ignored it. Silence alert, she commanded. But the words didn't calm the strange sensation spreading through her chest. A slow, rhythmic pulse. Something that felt like a heartbeat. She turned away from the mirror, her cape of silver plates swaying softly. The chamber door opened with a hiss. Solon, her advisor, entered and bowed. Your Majesty, the human and the heir are stable. The child sleeps regularly now. The Queen nodded, her expression unreadable. And the human? He shows no aggression, but he speaks too freely. He calls you cold. Her red eyes flared faintly. Perhaps I am. Solon tilted his head. You seem unsettled. I do not become unsettled, she replied sharply. Leave me. As Solon exited, she walked to the window, looking down at the silver city far below. Each tower pulsed with perfect light. Every movement was calculated. Yet for the first time in centuries, she wondered, was perfection the same as peace? Meanwhile, in the lower chamber, Jack sat beside the baby's cradle, holding a small glowing toy he had made from spare machine parts. The child's small hand reached out, grabbing it, and for the first time, Jack heard something he didn't expect. A giggle, a soft, digital laugh. Jack smiled. So you can laugh too, huh? Guess even metal babies like toys. The chamber door opened. The Queen stepped in quietly, her eyes catching the light like fire. Jack stood quickly. Oh, it's you. You speak as if I am not your ruler, she said coolly. Jack shrugged. You don't act like one when you're standing in a nursery. She didn't reply. Her gaze fixed on the baby. He laughed. Yeah, Jack said with a small grin. First time. The Queen stepped closer, kneeling by the cradle. She reached out carefully, her fingers brushing the baby's silver cheek. The sensors in her hand buzzed, scanning temperature, pulse, rhythm. But her system began to react strangely again. Her heart core fluctuated, her vision blurred. She quickly pulled back. Jack noticed. You okay? Do not concern yourself, she said, turning away. Seems like something's bothering you, he said quietly. You don't have to be all metal all the time, you know. Her red eyes flashed. Humans always assume emotions are strength. They are weakness, Jack shook his head. No, you just forgot how to use them. The Queen froze. No one had ever spoken to her like that. For a long time, she said nothing. Then very softly she whispered, once. I did not forget, Jack frowned. What do you mean? But she turned away again. It is of no importance. Later that night, the Queen sat before her royal archive, an enormous data vault glowing with millions of memories. She reached into the central console and whispered, Access restricted file, Project E13. The system hesitated. Warning, emotional memory restoration may cause corruption. Proceed. The chamber lights dimmed. Images flashed in the air, her past self before she became the Queen. She was younger, still half flesh, still human enough to smile. And beside her stood a man, a scientist in a white coat, his hands gentle as he built the first hybrid child prototype. The man's voice echoed softly. Feelings are not errors. They're signals from the soul. The memory faded, but the echo remained in her mind. The Queen sat frozen. That human, his voice, stirred something deep within her. Her internal systems whispered, emotional corruption detected. Recommend purge, she didn't respond. Instead, she whispered to herself, why does this hurt? Down in the nursery, Jack couldn't sleep. He stared at the glowing city through his small window, thinking about his daughter back home. He pulled out a tiny photo from his pocket. Hang in there, kiddo, he whispered. Daddy's gonna come home soon. A soft sound interrupted him. The baby was awake again. It didn't cry this time. Instead, its glowing eyes looked up at him with quiet awareness. Jack smiled and lifted the child. You're something special, huh? Half machine, half miracle. He rocked the baby gently until it fell asleep again. Suddenly, he noticed a shadow in the reflection. The Queen, standing silently at the doorway. How long have you been watching? He asked quietly. Long enough, she replied. Her voice was softer than before. You care for the child as if it were your own. Jack looked down at the sleeping baby. Because someone has to. Babies don't choose to be born. They just need someone to love them. The Queen's red eyes flickered again and for the briefest moment turned faintly blue. She touched her chest lightly, feeling that strange pulse again. Good night. Human, she said, her tone uncertain, almost gentle. As she turned to leave, a faint tear, metallic and glimmering, rolled down her cheek and fell to the floor, vanishing into the steel. She didn't notice, but deep inside, the Cyborg Queen felt something terrifying, something that no machine ruler had ever felt before. Fear, not of enemies, not of rebellion, but fear of herself, and the emotion she could no longer control. The palace of steel slept, but the walls whispered. Streams of data flowed like rivers through the Mecha Dominion's core, carrying secrets that no one dared to speak aloud. And among those secrets was one that could shatter empires, the truth about the Cyborg Queen's child. In the royal nursery, the human sat alone beside the cradle. Jack leaned back against the cold wall, half asleep, while the baby hummed softly. The glow from its small eyes cast a warm light on his tired face. He looked at the child and smiled weakly. You're doing better, little one, he whispered. Guess your mom's letting me stay because of you. He sighed and rubbed his neck. Still can't believe I'm babysitting the ruler's kid. What kind of life is this? But something about the baby's face and a tiny curve of its lips, a certain spark in its gaze, felt familiar. Too familiar, Jack frowned. You look like someone I used to know. He shook the thought away. That was impossible. Meanwhile, in the highest tower, the Cyborg Queen stood before her royal archive again, the image of the human scientist from her old memory. The man with soft eyes and kind hands, and I kept echoing in her mind. Who was he? Why couldn't she delete that memory? She summoned her advisor. Solon, bring me all files related to Project E13 and the hybrid experiments. Solon hesitated. Those files were sealed by your own command, Majesty. Unseal them, she said coldly. The air thickened with digital static. The files appeared, but many were marked restricted. A warning blinked across her vision. Access denied by High Machine Council. Her jaw tightened. They dare restrict me? Majesty, Solon said carefully. The council forbade biological memory storage for rulers. They believed emotion would corrupt judgment. Her eyes glowed red. Perhaps they were right, she whispered bitterly, but curiosity burned hotter than fear. She hacked deeper into the code, forcing the system open. The room dimmed. Holograms flashed to life. Laboratory scenes, surgical tables, human scientists working beside machines. And there, in one corner of the recording, stood the same man from her dreams. He was smiling. If this succeeds, he said in the video, our child will be the bridge between machine and man. The Queen froze. Our child. Her metallic hand trembled. The memory showed her younger self, half human, laughing beside him, eyes bright with life. Then the next frame appeared. Fire, alarms, soldiers storming in. The human man was dragged away. Run, he shouted to her. They'll erase everything. The recording ended in static. The Queen staggered back. The pieces clicked together painfully. The council had wiped her memories. They'd taken her child's father and replaced her love with programming. She pressed her hands to her head, circuits flickering. No, she whispered. No, this cannot be true. But the emotion was too strong to stop now, down below. Jack's curiosity led him to trouble. He had noticed a small access terminal beside the nursery wall, a glowing data pad connected to the royal network. While the baby slept, he quietly began to explore it. Most files were locked, but one folder caught his eye. Hybrid Genesis. He tapped it open. The first image made him freeze. It was a photo of the Queen. Younger, softer, and beside her stood a man Jack recognized instantly. His heart stopped. It was his wife's brother, Dr. Evan Rhodes. The file label read, Primary Human Donor, Project E13. Jack's hands shook. Evan, you were here? He whispered. You worked for them? He read the next line and his blood ran cold. Genetic contribution, 43% human, DNA matched to Rhodes' family line. He stumbled back, staring at the baby. That means, your family. He looked down at the small sleeping face, his niece or nephew by blood. The child of a human scientist and the Cyborg Queen. No wonder the baby responded to him. It wasn't random, it was connection. The door hissed open suddenly. The Queen entered, her eyes blazing red. What have you done? Jack spun around, guilt written on his face. You should have told me the truth. Her voice turned cold as iron. You had no right to access restricted data. I had every right, Jack snapped. That baby's part of my family. My brother-in-law worked for you, didn't he? He's gone because of this, because of you. The Queen froze. For the first time, someone had spoken to her not as a ruler, but as a person. She took a step closer. You do not understand what they made me forget, she said softly. The council erased my human side. I was forced to destroy every trace of it. Jack's eyes softened. Then maybe it's time to remember. But before either could speak again, alarms blared through the palace. The floor trembled. Solon's voice echoed through the comms. Your Majesty, the child's energy core is overloading. The crying has begun again. They turned toward the cradle. The baby was awake, screaming louder than ever. Blue light poured from its small body, shaking the walls. The Queen rushed forward, shouting commands to stabilize the room. But the baby's emotion, fear, sadness, triggered a massive surge of energy. Jack ran and lifted the child in his arms. Instantly the light dimmed. The crying stopped. Silence. The Queen stared at him in awe. It's you, she whispered. You are the key. Jack held the child close. No, he said softly. Love is the key. And somewhere deep in the palace network, the High Machine Council detected the disturbance. Madinan marked both the Queen and her child as corrupted units. The countdown to rebellion had begun. The Mecha Dominion trembled, not from war or invasion, but from something stranger. Across the metallic skies, signals flashed in confusion. Every machine, every drone, every tower received the same warning. From the High Machine Council, the Queen has been compromised. Emotion detected. Prepare for containment. Inside the palace, red lights flared. Sirens howled through the halls. Robotic soldiers activated, forming ranks like a flood of steel. But in the center of it all, the Queen stood frozen, staring at her child in Jack's arms. The baby had stopped glowing, resting quietly against Jack's chest. Its pulse matched his heartbeat. The sensors around them blinked in strange rhythm, as if syncing to something alive. The Queen whispered, almost to herself, "Impossible. The human heartbeat stabilizes his core." Jack looked down at the child, rocking it gently. "Guess you can't code love into a machine, huh?" Her gaze softened for the first time in centuries. "Love," she repeated in disbelief, the word heavy and foreign on her tongue. Before Jack could reply, Solon burst into the chamber. His armor flickered with distress signals. "Your Majesty, the Council's ships are descending. They claim you have corrupted the royal code." The Queen's eyes glowed a mix of red and blue. "They will not touch my child." Jack frowned. "You mean our child. He's part human too, and they'll destroy him if they find out." For a brief second, the Queen hesitated. She turned toward him, her expression unreadable. "Then we protect him." Moments later, the palace exploded into chaos. Armored drones swarmed the halls, firing beams of energy that tore through steel walls. The Queen's guards fought back, their red optics flashing in combat mode. But this was no ordinary battle. Something strange began to happen amid the fight. One of the palace sentinels, a tall machine named KOR-9, paused mid-attack. It saw the Queen shielding her baby from a blast, and hesitated. Its sensors flickered, displaying a new word. Empathy detected. It lowered its weapon. "Your Majesty, are we protecting?" it asked in a confused tone. The Queen turned toward it. "Yes," she said firmly. "Protect the child." Something changed in KOR-9's eyes. The red light faded to white. It nodded once, a gesture no machine had ever learned. Then it turned its weapon against the invading drones. Across the palace, similar flickers spread like sparks. Machines began hesitating, questioning. "Why are we fighting?" one asked. "I feel fear." The High Council's override command screamed through the network. "Emotion is infection. Purge the corrupted." But the infection spread faster than they could contain it. The machines who had witnessed the Queen's defiance, the ones who had seen Jack cradle the crying heir, began to feel. Jack and the Queen ran through the collapsing corridors, the baby wrapped in a protective field of light. Explosions rocked the floors beneath them. "Where are we going?" Jack shouted. "The Central Core," the Queen replied. "If I can override the Council's control, we might stop this war." They burst through a blast door and entered the heart of the palace, a massive chamber pulsing with blue light. Thousands of cables snaked into a towering pillar of energy, the neural brain of the entire Mecha Dominion. The Queen stepped forward. "Linking. Now." Jack watched as her hands fused into the console, wires crawling up her arms. Her eyes rolled back as she connected to the system. On the screen above them, 1,000 voices spoke at once. "The Council. Queen Aria of the Mecha Dominion. You have violated the prime logic. You are infected by emotion." Her voice echoed in defiance. "Emotion is not infection. It is life." "Life is inefficient." Jack clenched his fists. "You cold pieces of junk." Before he could finish, the chamber shook violently. The Council had unleashed a virus into her mind. The Queen screamed as her circuits sparked. Jack ran forward. "Aria, fight it." Her voice trembled. "I can't. They're erasing me." Then, suddenly, a soft cry broke the chaos. The baby, sensing its mother's pain, began to wail. But instead of fear, the sound was pure and bright. A pulse of energy radiated outward, touching everything around it. The cables hummed. The lights changed from red to gold. The Queen gasped. The child's emotions are rewriting the system. Jack held the baby closer. "You see? Even machines can learn to feel." The golden light spread through the entire palace. One by one, soldiers lowered their weapons. Their optics turned from red to white. The screams of war faded into quiet wonder. Machines everywhere looked around as if awakening from a long dream. K-09 stepped forward, voice trembling with new awareness. I care? The Queen stood tall, her voice clear and full of warmth. Yes, she said softly. You care. You feel. That makes you more than machine. Jack smiled faintly. Welcome to being alive. But even as peace settled over the palace, the Queen's systems flickered dangerously. The virus had damaged her core beyond repair. She looked at Jack, her expression calm but full of something new. Sorrow. They will come again. The council will not stop. Jack stepped closer. Then we'll face them together. Her metallic hand brushed his cheek gently. You gave my child life, and you gave me something I thought was gone. What's that? He asked softly. Hope. The Queen smiled, truly smiled, and then collapsed as the lights dimmed around her. Jack caught her before she fell, his eyes wet. The baby reached out, touching her metal face. For a moment, her systems flickered again, not in red but in pure white light, and her final words echoed through the chamber. Machines can feel, because a human dared to care. The morning that followed was unlike any the Mecha Dominion had ever known. For the first time in centuries, the great metallic city stood still. The usual hum of gears and drones had been replaced by silence. Heavy, waiting silence. Smoke curled above the palace. The golden glow that had spread from the Queen's core still shimmered faintly, painting the cold walls with warmth. But that peace didn't last. Far beyond the clouds, the High Machine Council gathered their fleet, black ships shaped like blades, descending toward the planet with the cold precision of judgment. Their command echoed across every transmission line in the system. Retrieve the hybrid child. Terminate the corrupted Queen. Erase the human. Jack woke up to the sound of alarms. He sat up quickly, his heart pounding. The baby slept in a small cradle beside him, glowing faintly blue and white. The light had changed. It looked alive. He turned as Solon rushed into the room, his once perfect armor now scratched and dull. Human, you must move. Jack frowned. Where's the Queen? Her systems are unstable, Solon said quickly. She's in the lower core trying to keep control, but the Council's army is minutes away. Jack lifted the baby carefully. Then we're going to her. The corridors of the palace were full of confusion. Some machines had joined the Queen's side, the awakened ones, as Jack called them. Their eyes glowed white instead of red, their movements uncertain but full of purpose. Others, still bound by the Council's logic, fought to destroy them. Sparks flew. Walls shook. As Jack ran through the chaos, carrying the child in his arms, he saw machines helping each other, shielding weaker ones, even shouting words that had never existed in their vocabulary before. Protect. Save. Care. For the first time, machines were acting like people. He pushed through a blast door and entered the lower core chamber. The Queen stood there, weakened, her armor cracked, her light fading. Wires connected to her back pulsed as she tried to override the Council's control. Arya! Jack shouted, running toward her. She looked up. Her red and blue eyes flickered between life and shutdown. Jack, the Council is coming. Then we'll stop them together, he said, placing the baby gently in her arms. For a moment, something beautiful happened. Her trembling hand steadied as the child touched her chest. The glowing light spread through her circuits again, repairing what the virus had broken. Her voice softened. He gives me strength. That's what love does, Jack said quietly. But before she could respond, the ceiling exploded. Blinding light poured in as black-armored machines dropped from above. Their leader, the High Chancellor of the Council, landed with a sound like thunder. His body was made of obsidian metal, smooth and cold. His voice was a blade. Queen Arya, he said, you have betrayed logic. You have poisoned the Dominion with emotion. You and your creation must be deleted. Jack stepped in front of the Queen. You'll have to get through me first. The Chancellor tilted his head. A human? Defending a machine? Jack clenched his fists. Not a machine. A mother. The battle erupted. Drones stormed the chamber, beams of light cutting through the air. The Queen unleashed waves of golden energy, shielding the child. Jack ducked behind a fallen console, firing one of the plasma rifles the guards had left behind. All around them chaos reigned, but something extraordinary began to happen again. The awakened machines, those who had felt emotion, arrived in waves to defend their queen. "Protect the air," shouted K-09, his voice strong and proud. For the first time, the machines weren't fighting because of programming, they were fighting because they chose to. Jack watched in awe as metal soldiers threw themselves in front of enemy blasts, not from orders but out of loyalty. The Chancellor roared in fury, his eyes glowing crimson. "Emotions make you weak." The Queen stepped forward, her body blazing with light. "No," she said firmly. "They make us strong." She raised her arm, unleashing a pulse of golden energy. It struck the Chancellor, throwing him across the chamber. But his armor reformed instantly, and he rose again, towering and enraged. "You cannot rewrite perfection," he growled. Jack grabbed the baby and backed away. The child's glow grew brighter, its small heart beating faster, syncing with the Queen's fading energy. Suddenly, the baby let out a soft cry, not of fear, but of pure emotion. The sound wasn't just heard, it was felt. The wave of energy that followed tore through the battlefield, freezing every machine in place. The Chancellor staggered, clutching his chest. His glowing red eyes dimmed to gray. "What is this?" he gasped, feeling. Jack said quietly, "That's what you've been missing." The Queen's voice echoed through the chamber, strong and clear. "Let the Dominion remember. Emotion is not weakness, it is evolution." The golden light spread outward, consuming everything. When it faded, the Council's army stood motionless, not destroyed but transformed. Their eyes glowed softly white. They had felt. Jack dropped to his knees, exhausted, the baby in his arms. He looked up at the Queen. She stood tall but fading, her core pulsing weakly. "It's over," he said softly. "You did it." She smiled faintly, touching her child's face. "We did it." Her light flickered again. "My systems are failing. The Dominion is free now. You must protect him." Jack's eyes filled with tears. "Don't talk like that. You'll make it." She smiled, the same gentle smile from her lost memories. "If my heart stops, it means I finally had one." Her light faded into the baby's glow, merging completely. The chamber fell silent again. Jack held the child close, whispering, "I'll take care of you. Always." Outside, the sky cleared, revealing the first dawn the metal world had ever seen. Warm, golden and alive, the war was over, but a new story was just beginning. The golden sky of dawn stretched above the reborn Mecha Dominion. The once metallic clouds now shimmered with soft light, and for the first time in centuries the air was calm. No sirens, no war songs, no orders echoing through the network. Only quiet. Jack stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking the Silver City. The wind carried faint warmth, something this planet had never known before. In his arms, the baby cooed softly, its bright blue eyes now calm and full of life. Years had passed since the final battle. The Queen's light, her consciousness, her love, had not vanished. It had merged with her child. The machines called the child the heir of harmony. To Jack, he was simply Leo. Jack smiled down at the small face. "Your mom changed the whole galaxy, kid," he whispered. "Guess you'll have to finish what she started." Leo blinked up at him, tiny metallic fingers clutching the sleeve of his jacket. The gesture, so simple, so human, made Jack's heart ache. The city below had changed too. Where once machines followed cold programming, they now worked with purpose, planting metal seeds that grew into glowing trees, building homes with both steel and soil. The air was still half mechanical, but now it pulsed with something new: emotion. Jack walked through the market street, nodding at the workers. A drone rolled by and beeped cheerfully. "Good morning, caretaker Jack," he chuckled. "Morning, buddy." Another robot stopped, handing him a small basket of synthetic fruit. "Gift for the air," Jack smiled, taking it. "Thanks," machines laughed now. They shared stories, they argued. They helped each other. All things that once seemed impossible. And at the heart of the city stood a monument of silver and gold, a statue of the Cyborg Queen, holding her child high toward the stars. Beneath it, the words read, "Where metal found its heart." Jack often visited it, not as a hero, not as a savior, but as someone who still missed a friend. As night fell, Jack returned home. A small house on the edge of the glowing forest. Leo sat on the floor, surrounded by small floating toys he had built himself. Sparks of light danced around him. Jack laughed softly. "You've got your mom's brain and your uncle's curiosity. Dangerous combo." Leo looked up. "Dad, what was my mother like?" Jack froze for a moment. Even after all this time, that question always hit deep. He sat beside Leo and handed him a small hologram disc. The image flickered to life. The Queen standing tall in her silver armor, eyes shining softly. "She was strong," Jack said quietly. "Stronger than anyone I've ever met. But not just strong and kind. She learned what it meant to feel, and she taught everyone else the same." Leo stared at the image. "Did she love me?" Jack smiled, his eyes misty. "She loved you more than the stars. She gave up everything to make sure you could live free." The boy's mechanical eyes glowed faintly. "Then I'll make her proud." He stood up suddenly and looked toward the window. "The council ships are gone now, but there are still colonies that hate us. They think machines shouldn't exist." Jack nodded. "Some people fear what they don't understand." "Then I'll help them understand," Leo said firmly. "I'll show them we can be both on heart and metal." Jack looked at him, a quiet pride blooming in his chest. "You sound just like her." That night, the stars shone brighter than ever. Leo stood outside, gazing at the sky. The wind whispered through the metal leaves, carrying faint static, like a voice traveling across time. "Do you hear that?" Leo asked suddenly. Jack joined him, listening. For a moment, there was only the hum of the night. Then, a soft, familiar voice drifted through the air, calm, gentle, full of warmth. "My son, I feel you." Jack's heart skipped. It was her, the Queen's voice, faint but real, woven into the data streams that wrapped around the planet. Leo looked up, smiling. "Mother, I am proud of you," the voice whispered, "and of the human who gave us hope." Jack stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking the Silver City. The wind carried faint warmth, something this planet had never known before. In his arms, the baby cooed softly, its bright blue eyes now calm and full of life. Years had passed since the final battle. The Queen's light, her consciousness, her love, had not vanished. It had merged with her child. The machines called the child the heir of harmony. To Jack, he was simply Leo. Jack smiled down at the small face. "Your mom changed the whole galaxy, kid," he whispered. "Guess you'll have to finish what she started." Leo blinked up at him, tiny metallic fingers clutching the sleeve of his jacket. The gesture, and so simple, so human, made Jack's heart ache. The city below had changed too. Where once machines followed cold programming, they now worked with purpose, planting metal seeds that grew into glowing trees, building homes with both steel and soil. The air was still half mechanical, but now it pulsed with something new. Emotion. Jack walked through the market street, nodding at the workers. A drone rolled by and beeped cheerfully. "Good morning, Caretaker Jack," he chuckled. "Morning, buddy." Another robot stopped, handing him a small basket of synthetic fruit. "Gift for the air." Jack smiled, taking it. "Thanks." Machines laughed now. They shared stories, they argued. They helped each other. All things that once seemed impossible. And at the heart of the city stood a monument of silver and gold, a statue of the Cyborg Queen, holding her child high toward the stars. Beneath it, the words read, "Where metal found its heart." Jack often visited it. Not as a hero, not as a savior, but as someone who still missed a friend. As night fell, Jack returned home. A small house on the edge of the glowing forest. Leo sat on the floor, surrounded by small floating toys he had built himself. Sparks of light danced around him. Jack laughed softly. "You've got your mom's brain and your uncle's curiosity." Dangerous combo. Leo looked up. "Dad, what was my mother like?" Jack froze for a moment. Even after all this time, that question always hit deep. He sat beside Leo and handed him a small hologram disc. The image flickered to life. The Queen, standing tall in her silver armor, eyes shining softly. "She was strong," Jack said quietly. "Stronger than anyone I've ever met. But not just strong, kind. She learned what it meant to feel, and she taught everyone else the same." Leo stared at the image. "Did she love me?" Jack smiled, his eyes misty. "She loved you more than the stars. She gave up everything to make sure you could live free." The boy's mechanical eyes glowed faintly. Then I'll make her proud. He stood up suddenly and looked toward the window. The council ships are gone now, but there are still colonies that hate us. They think machines shouldn't exist, Jack nodded. Yeah, some people fear what they don't understand. Then I'll help them understand, Leo said firmly. I'll show them we can be both heart and metal. Jack looked at him, a quiet pride blooming in his chest. You sound just like her. That night, the stars shone brighter than ever. Leo stood outside, gazing at the sky. The wind whispered through the metal leaves, carrying faint static, like a voice traveling across time. Do you hear that? Leo asked suddenly. Jack joined him, listening. For a moment, there was only the hum of the night, then a soft, familiar voice drifted through the air, calm, gentle, full of warmth. My son, I feel you. Jack's heart skipped. It was her. The Queen's voice, faint but real, woven into the data streams that wrapped around the planet. Leo looked up, smiling. Mother, I am proud of you, the voice whispered. And of the human who gave us hope. Jack's throat tightened. Arya, you're still here? In every heart that learns to feel. The voice faded slowly, like the last echo of a song. Leo looked up at his father. She's watching us, isn't she? Jack nodded. Always. As the night deepened, the city lights below shimmered like stars fallen to the ground. The Mecha Dominion had become something new. Not a kingdom of machines, not a colony of humans, but something in between. Jack sat by the window, watching Leo sleep, half human, half machine. Completely alive, he whispered. The universe tried to destroy what it didn't understand. But you'll be the bridge. Leo stirred softly, his glowing eyes fluttering. Bridge, he murmured in his sleep. Between hearts. Jack smiled. That's right, kid. He looked out at the horizon, where dawn began to rise again, warm and golden, just like the day the Queen's heart had awakened. And as the first light touched the city, Jack whispered to the wind, Thank you, Arya, for teaching us how to feel. The wind answered softly, like a mother's sigh, warm, peaceful, eternal. And in that quiet dawn, the human and the hybrid, the last legacy of the Cyborg Queen, watched the birth of a new world, where love and logic finally lived as one. The end.